The United Methodist Committee on Relief has such a strong history of committed leadership, dedicated and competent staff, and impeccable financial administration that just don't want anyone to miss out on the opportunity to be a part of the lives of people in the name of Spirit of Jesus Christ.
Welcome to the One Great Hour of Sharing podcast, brought to you by Encore. Today, we're talking about the ministry of relief and hope that Encore is bringing around the world and how your church can get involved. Thanks for joining us as we get ready for One Great Hour of Sharing on the fourth Sunday of Lent.
Welcome to the One Great Hour of Sharing podcast. This is the podcast that as we count down to the fourth Sunday of Lent, we're taking time out to invite your church to support the vital work of Encore through this special Sunday. Today, we have an incredible guest on the show, a real treat for us. We have Norma Kehrberg. She's currently in Honolulu. I'm in New Jersey. I wish we were reversed, or at least I wish I was in Honolulu today. Norma, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rich. It's been a pleasure to look forward to this time with you, and you've asked me to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which means the One Great Hour Sharing and the United Methodist Committee on Relief. Appreciate the opportunity.
I'm so glad. Norma, why don't you, for people who don't know you, you have a varied background. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, give us the Norma story in, a couple minutes. Tell us where you're coming from.
That's great. It's a nice way for you to say, Rich, a varied background. What it means is you're old. But anyway, let me do it. I started out, with a mission call when I grew up in a small church in Iowa through the Evangelical United Brother Church. And I fulfilled that call in missionary service in the country of Nepal, an incredible experience. I thank God every day that I had it. Then the second incredible call was to have the opportunity to work as the executive director of UMCOR in New York during the 80s, and when we went on to celebrate the 50th anniversary celebration of the United Methodist Committee on Relief. And now my next phase is actually the incredible experience of living and working and being a part of the local church in Honolulu, Hawaii. Another thankful experience to God, not only for the weather, but the rich variety of cultures and people who live here who have allowed me to become a part of them is just something I cannot be more grateful for, and I thank God for that also.
All right. Well, why don't you explain to our listeners the relationship between One Great Hour of Sharing and Encore? How do those two work together?
Well, since you asked the question, and I knew it was coming, these two have to be put together because you cannot have one really without the other. The United Methodist Committee on Relief is an amazing agency that was started in 1940 with a clarion call from Bishop Herbert Welch at General Conference. And as a bishop, he had to ask permission to speak. But it was in the aftermath of World War II that he saw the human need around the world and said, we need a place in our church to be a voice of conscience for people in need, regardless of creed, color, or race. And from that initial little beginning, they had a committee that started to say, how can we operate? And they formed the structure of what is now the United Methodist Committee on Relief. And they've had such great principles. They rooted it in the Bible. And they rooted it also with the idea that it's not something we keep to ourselves. We share the opportunity to be with all people in need, regardless of color, race, or creed. And I can see this play out all the way across the 70-year history of UMCOR, and it's just beautiful to see. Now, it also said they had the desire, they had the need to raise funds. And they weren't going to get funds from any place in the church. And so they started and realized we have to raise funds and actually then be responsible morally and in a very fiduciary responsible way to use them. So in 1946, actually, the Episcopal Church actually had the first One Great Hour Sharing offering. Then very quickly, other denominations joined in, including the United Methodist Committee on Relief. The United Methodist Church. UMCOR gets no money from what I call the general church agencies. Mm-hmm. It has to make it on its own. And this offering, this One Great Hour Sharing offering, enables UMCOR to remain as an agency in our church that is respected through all quarters of the church. And that is a big thing to say in our church today. So the One Great Hour Sharing supports the work of UMCOR, and it does support what we call the administrative costs. But if every church in our United Methodist Connection would actually give to this offering, there'd be tons of money left over to also respond. So that's the connection between the two.
You know, it's amazing. I just want to underline that there. It's amazing that this one Sunday celebrated at so many churches across the United Methodist Church is funding the incredible work all around the world of the United Methodist Committee on Relief. It's incredible that just this one Sunday makes a huge difference. And we obviously, the reason why we're doing this podcast is because we're hoping that more churches will join, this coming year as we count down to that Sunday. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about, your local church? You're now, as you said, you're in Honolulu. I think God may be calling me to Honolulu. What do you tell us about some, how one great hour of sharing is celebrated, even at your church there?
In Honolulu, I belong to Harris United Methodist Churches, which just celebrated its 125th anniversary this past year. It primarily started as a church for Japanese immigrants who were not allowed to marry, had no official function because they were primarily Buddhists, and if they didn't have a Christian pastor, you couldn't do it. So it started from that roots, but it keeps a lot of the founding ideas, of the culture of the Japanese, but it's really a cosmopolitan church now. We have about 300 members. Cool. And each year, since I think probably in the mid-'80s, since I was a member of this church before, and when I went to UMCOR, we had some strong support. They've taken this offering, and we usually raise always over $1,000 on that Sunday, and usually upward $1,400, $1,500, $1,600 for the One Great Hour Sharing offering. And they're very, yes, you have to have concerned people that are concerned about it. You have to have a church pastors who want to put it into the schedule, and all that is operational here. And then we assist through our Global Ministries group to do a little extra touch, whether it has to do with getting the offering, some posters, newsletters, a little extra push, and maybe a litany or something to dress it up a little bit to make people kind of visualize it also. Mm-hmm. But the spoken word is very important.
Absolutely. Now, why don't you tell us, you sit from a unique vantage point. Why don't you tell us a bit about, some interesting things that you've seen UMCOR do, over the years when you kind of, you say, this is a part of the church that we should just be really proud of what's happened. Why is that? What are some actions that you've seen UMCOR take over the years that stir particular pride, even in you, as you think about this one segment of the church?
Well, as you may have to flesh that sentence out again, because I think we forgot one important part when we talked about the One Great Hour Sharing and its connection with the advance, and I'm going to get to that. And essentially what it is, because we have the One Great Hour Sharing, when we have emergencies around the world, I can think of no other agency, not one, that can say, when you give to an emergency around the world through UMCOR, 100% of your gift goes. If you give $1, $1 goes. Nothing's taken off. Nothing's taken off for publicity, for the administration, for whatever. 100% goes, and the reason it does is because of the One Great Hour of Sharing. That really sells in the local church, because it means when you have a disaster, people know there's no... Administrative costs are essential. I'm not saying that groups shouldn't do that. But it just says we have this unique opportunity in our church. And I think that's one of the things that I've appreciated about UMCOR. The other thing over the ages that I've seen is that UMCOR was based on a firm foundation, biblically based. You can't get any stronger than the scripture from Matthew 25, even if you use the old King James Version, which I like.
Absolutely.
It's just, as you do it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you do it to me. And in fact, Inasmuch was the name of the UMCOR newsletter for years and years when Dr. Gaither Warfield was the first longtime executive director. I think the other thing that I really appreciate about UMCOR, when they have emergencies and disasters, you can take Sandy Hook, you could take the Katrina. Katrina is a good example. You could take even the destruction of the Twin Towers and name those in the U.S. I'd like to speak about the Ethiopia one when I was first with UMCOR in 1984. Terrible famine unfolding, and there have been famines since then, but it was pretty huge in that day and time. And we had no United Methodist Church there, but it did not matter because of the way UMCOR is set up. Even from the very first beginnings, we worked with the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, and we worked with other groups that were there. And the United Methodist Church and even some outside groups raised over $8 million. Now, responsibly, now in these days, of course, that's small. It's big, but still small. In those days, it was huge. And it's also very important for, I think, UMCOR in its integrity to actually dispose of the money in a moral, helpful way. So you cannot just dump $8 million immediately. Right. But see, that's what UMCOR does so well. We used to call it the 4 R's: relief, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. And so over the course of those years, we set out a program with the Ethiopian Orthodox Church to use the monies where needed in relief and then begin rehabilitating and reconstructing the communities. And it still does that. You look at Haiti, the situation in Haiti after the terrible earthquake there in which Sam Dixon was killed, the executive director of UMCOR. They're still going forward in many of those funds that came through. So I think that is a marvelous part of the organization of UMCOR.
I love the heart of that. I don't want people to miss that UMCOR stepped in Ethiopia and continues to in other situations, even when there isn't a local United Methodist, community there, to really say, hey, we want to serve in the name of Jesus. We want to step in and make a difference. And that's incredible. That's what a great thing to be a part of. That's what we're getting to be a part of when we're a part of One Great Hour of Sharing coming up in just a few weeks.
The One Great Hour of Sharing podcast, brought to you by Encore.
What would your challenge be to a church leader or person within that church that isn't participating? What would you say to them to try to encourage them to join in, this year?
I think it's, we have some churches, I think, in Hawaii who may not completely, everybody says, well, we don't have the funds. And I think the mentality is, it's like the penny. I can't remember the song, The Magic Penny. The more you spend, the more it's sort of like it's infectious. If you can enthusiastically sell, let's say, and I don't want to use a sell, but it is more, to tell the program what can happen in the lives of people through your church and what can happen in the lives of people through the One Great Hour of Sharing, which enables UMCOR, why would they not want to be involved? And I think what we need to do is somehow one-on-one on pastors, particularly maybe the newer clergy who are coming out, who don't have that long history where everything seemed to be like, if the church spoke, it was one voice and everybody knew about the United Methodist Connection. Now through podcasts and social media, news is coming from everywhere. And clergy seem to be overwhelmed. I think clergy is a key place to start and to allow them to realize if they could give the opportunity to their church members. And it's not a matter, my father used to always say, oh, every Sunday the pastor's asking for special money. I said, Dad, you don't have to give. You just have the opportunity to give when you want. And when you give, you usually give more. So I think I'd start with one-on-one with pastors, first find out in the area, which you're telling me now is what I should do in the district here, is find out who's not giving, talk to the DS and contact the pastors. But people tend to have a pretty high giving record here, at least in my district.
Anything else you'd like to share with people that are listening in today?
Oh, I guess what I'd like to say is the United Methodist Committee on Relief has such a strong history of committed leadership, dedicated and competent staff, and impeccable financial administration that just don't want anyone to miss out on the opportunity to be a part of the lives of people in the name of Spirit of Jesus Christ. And you can do that by participating and contributing to the One Great Hour Sharing. And you can always say to yourself, inasmuch as you have done it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you can be involved in being Christ present for others. Get on board. It's great.
Thank you so much, Norma. I thank you for your time today and your passion, and I look forward to seeing more and hearing more from you in the future.
Thank you for joining us for the One Great Hour of Sharing podcast. We want your church to join us for this special Sunday that supports the vital work of UMCOR. Drop by umcor.org for more information on how to get involved.